All right, I'd like to introduce you to my friend Anthony DiClementi. Anthony is an expert in functional medicine and nutritional neuroscience, also an executive wellness coach, and he's the author of a book called The Biohacker's Guide to Upgraded Energy and Focus. And that, I'm going to tell you how to get that actually later on. But more to the point of what we're going to be talking about today, Anthony is an expert in what's known as biohacking. So welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Now, I'm going to get right into it here. First off, the question I've got for you. If you were to say, explain to somebody who had never heard of this concept before, what exactly is biohacking? What would you tell them?
Yeah, so biohacking is it's the art and science of using nature, technology, and evidence-based strategies to upgrade our energy and focus. Essentially, like, how do we become the best version of ourselves and make small, high leverage changes to our health that facilitates that journey.
Excellent, yeah. So that's it's kind of like improving yourself, improving your own efficiency, almost like at a factory where they're kind of tweaking things to make things work more functionally, more and better, essentially more productive during the day.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. It's this concept of Kaizen, which is a Japanese word for improvement, constant improvement, and it's what was in part responsible for the Japanese auto industry surpassing us because they were constantly making small improvements to their manufacturing process, and the end result was a better automobile. And what we're doing with biohacking is we're looking at, okay, where's my health at right now? Where are the opportunities for improvement, the low-hanging fruit, and what are the customized evidence-based strategies that will help me feel more energy and more mental clarity and focus so that you get the most out of every single day and you're shortening that distance between where you are now and the highest and best version of yourself.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's basically like self-improvement, but based on evidence and stuff that you can actually make use of. Like I said, the evidence-based aspect of it I find fascinating because there's so many different little studies and science bits and tidbits and stuff. People, they read in USA Today, do this lemon water in the morning, first thing in the morning, and all these things are flying at them. But to kind of take that into a whole context and customize it to a person, it's like, this is what you can do to make yourself better in your specific life. I think that's fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the direction that everything is moving, and you kind of hit the nail on the head with how much misinformation is out there and pseudoscience. And I think that we're starting to realize that the same things that work for a 55-year-old woman aren't necessarily the strategies that should be applied for a 25-year-old man who's trying to put on muscle, where maybe that 55-year-old woman is trying to overcome some of the symptoms that have presented themselves after menopause, right? And we're finding after a dozen New York Times best-selling books, or like combing through blogs and newsletters that present generic advice, that what really works best for us is identifying what are our low-hanging fruit, what are our opportunities for upgrading our energy and focus, and how do we weave those into a daily routine that allows us to express ourselves and step into our full potential.
Yeah, and I think you're right on the money too, where it's not every tip is going to be applicable to every person.
Yeah, not at all.
Like like you said, if a 55-year-old woman going through menopause is not exactly going to need the same stuff as a 25-year-old guy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And part of the reason that we came out with this book and like the Biohacking Secrets lifestyle is because for so long we've been myopically focused on nutrition and exercise, and like those are the two ways that we increase our energy or change our body or pretty much achieve any health based goal. And what we've found in working with thousands of people all over the world one-on-one is that we've got the wrong paradigm. We're only looking at like two of the inputs that really influence our body's ability to make energy. And when we're able to, what we do with the book and what we do with coaching and the lifestyle is like we take our focus away from just diet and exercise, and we say, look, it's not food that gives you energy. It's not exercise that gives you energy. It's the little energy powerhouses in your cells called mitochondria that give you energy. And when people say, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And you start to explain, you say, the reason that you haven't got the results that you're looking for through just nutrition and exercise is because there's all these other things that influence our mitochondria. It's your nutrition, your movement, your stress management, your sleep, supplements that optimize energy production and deal with underlying health issues, hydration, like we were talking about the Kangen machine, oxygenation, sunlight, and then, of course, mindset and habits. How do you apply this stuff consistently? But the one area that a lot of people are starting to have an aha moment about when it comes to like this biohacking system and paradigm that we've designed is if you have an underlying health issue that is like, I call them energy vampires. But if you have like an energy vampire that is interfering with your body's ability to produce energy at a cellular level, that's interfering with your mitochondria's ability to make ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is like the cellular currency of energy. If you don't address that, no matter what changes you make to your diet, no matter what changes you make to your exercise regimen or any of the other foundational components that I just mentioned, you're going to have limited results because you've got like this massive bottleneck. And that bottleneck could be hormonal issues. It could be adrenal fatigue. It could be thyroid issues. It could be digestive problems and gut dysfunction. And it's kind of like the equivalent of you've got like a really nice car, like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or something, but you're driving around with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. You know, until you get that foot off the brake, your car is never going to perform as well as it can. And that's kind of what we're doing with biohacking and helping people to just feel the energetic potential that they have inside of themselves.
And how you were describing it, I think, is really good too, as it's kind of a framework for guiding yourself through these things. So it's not just like here's a bunch of tips thrown at you. It's like here's the process. Here are the different things that you can adjust. Like I said, nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress. There's so many different things that don't always even occur to people that they can even adjust their reactions to, and it creates a lot of bottlenecks. And I love your analogy with the mitochondria, the energy, because that's really the basic amount of it. Is like just in thinking about it, if you have a pile of wood, that's what your food is, but nothing happens unless you burn that wood. There's no energy. You're not getting a fire unless that wood starts to burn. And that's what the mitochondria do, is they set that wood on fire. And, so you can have all this food going into you and you're not getting much out of it because it's not getting burned. It's not getting transformed into ATP like you were saying. So I think that's a fantastic analogy. And I think that kind of gets people clued in, like, here's the real value of biohacking and this is how it's going to boost your energy levels.
Yeah, that's a beautiful analogy, and like I like to kind of nerd out with some of these analogies and metaphors. But what you were saying, like, yeah, let's look at food as wood, right? And then imagine you've got someone that's dealing with digestive problems, and so that's kind of like the equivalent of, you're walking through the woods, you're gathering sticks and logs and twigs to build a fire, but as you're walking towards the fire pit, leaky gut, these holes in our intestinal lining, that allow undigested food particles to get through. Well, now you're dropping wood and sticks along the way. So by the time you get to the fire pit, you've already lost a bunch of that wood. And so like you're not absorbing everything that, you eat. And then you put the wood in the fire pit, but a bunch of it gets wet. Your fire pit's got some moisture in there. So then that wood's not gonna burn either. And what's left, yeah, it burns, but it's a small percentage of what you've taken in. And that's a lot of what's going on with when we have these underlying health issues. If you've got digestive problems and leaky gut, you're eating food and you may actually still be starving at a cellular level.
Yeah, no, that's the more I think about it, the more I like that analogy.
Yeah, it's a good one.
As you're explaining it too, like the dropping the firewood and the wet and all the other conditional things that put a damper on, getting the most out of your fire. That's exactly what's happening in your body. And, biohacking isn't all about these little things that are, throwing at you, but it's like a whole collective of these holistic things that help to move your whole organism forward, essentially.
Yeah, it's definitely what it is. And that's why we kind of put this, we took a lot of what I've been doing with coaching clients for years and how our system has evolved, and we put it into a book because, since the book launched in like July of last year, we've done over 13,000 copies. It's physically impossible for me to work with 13,000 people, and I'd go insane trying, right? But the stories from people that have gone through the book and said, rather than me spending all of my energy like I had been scouring every blog on the internet, buying every New York Times best-selling book, that a lot of times, like, let's be honest, they present the same information, right? How should you eat? Oh, eat paleo. How should you exercise? Do high-intensity interval training. How should you sleep? Oh, make sure your room is dark and shut down electronics and make sure your room is cold. It's like we've heard that shit 1,000 times, right? It doesn't help. Like, that's not getting us to the next level. And it's because, like, we're missing so many of these other pieces that play a role, and we're missing how to apply them in a way that deals with what we've got going on. Like our health, our health status, our genetics, our epigenetic expression, all of those things are dynamic. And even things that we think are determined by our genes, like food allergies, right? We're now seeing with clients that I can have someone come in with a laundry list of food sensitivities. They start applying, these biohacking secrets lifestyle components, and their food allergies start dropping off. Right? A lot of stuff that we thought was predetermined by our parents, we're realizing we have control over. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned the word epigenetics, and I think that's along the lines of what that is, isn't it? It's like the expression of your genes, or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
One that we see a lot is it's a genetic variation called Mthfr, and it's essentially like it affects 30 to 50% of the population. A lot of people have it, and if you have this genetic variation, it can make you susceptible to detoxification problems. So like lower energy levels, lower feel-good neurotransmitters like serotonin, the same chemical that is boosted when we take antidepressants like Prozac. And I was having a conversation with the Peter Thiel's physician over at Thiel Capital. So he's the guy that like founded PayPal and all of that. So he has a physician that's working like full-time on his staff and handles all of his medical stuff. And we were talking about MTHFR, and he's like, I'm fascinated by MTHFR and how that influences the people that have that gene. He's like, but I'm even more fascinated by what causes the MTHFR gene to express itself. He goes, because there are so many of these genes that can influence our energy levels and our mental clarity and how well our bodies are able to eliminate toxins. But just because we have them does not mean they're expressing themselves, and furthermore, does not mean that they're even influencing our physiology, right? But you can take someone that's really, really healthy, put them in a job they hate, take away their sleep, have them sit on their ass for 13 hours a day, start feeding them a whole bunch of inflammatory foods, and in 6 months you can have a completely different person than the individual that you started with.
Yeah, no, it's all those different things that are, like you said, causing those genes to flip on and turn on and cause these changes to happen. So it's kind of like the people potentially who smoke and drink until they're 105 years old.
Yeah.
People have the genetics to be able to do that, and those genes don't get turned on, or they don't have them for killing them earlier.
Yeah, it's a great example.
Who's, maybe, so like somebody who's 40, 50 years old might do the same thing and die when they're 45.
Yeah.
Or somebody, because the genes turned on and killed them.
Right. Yeah, there's it all, like, everything exists along this continuum, and like even diabetes, right? Like, we like to look at type 2 diabetes as like either you have it or you don't. But it exists along a continuum of like, oh, my blood sugar is a little bit high. Oh, I've got signs of blood sugar dysregulation. Oh, I've got pre-diabetes, and now I've got diabetes. You can see it happening. It's not like one day you wake up and you have diabetes, and you can intervene and correct course at any point along the way. Yeah, but and just like there are people who maybe start off with a suboptimal ability to detoxify, there's people like George Burns, as you mentioned, who probably have like an overexpression of antioxidants like glutathione that clear reactive oxygen species from their body. And like, you look at it as like anytime we're producing energy, our bodies are making exhaust, right? Like a car running. Anytime a car is running, it's making exhaust. And some people have got their, if that car is running in the garage, some people have got their garage door open and fans blowing that exhaust out. While other people, maybe at the other end of the extreme, and they've got their garage door closed, and they need a lot more help to prevent themselves from experiencing the negative effects of all of those accumulating toxins.
Yeah, I love that analogy too, actually. That makes such good sense, yeah.
The analogy episode. We're just like making them up on the fly.
We need an analogy for that.
Yeah. We'll just, no, my business partner, Russell Brunson, he's great. He's got like this way of bringing things to your attention where you don't like take it personal or anything like that. It's just like, he can help you realize that you're doing something wrong and need to adjust your approach without you taking any offense to it. So he sends me this presentation that he did for Joe Polish's like 100,000 membership, whatever it is, like the mastermind where you got to pay like $100K a year to be a part of it. And he was talking about techno. He sends it to me and he goes, "Hey," he's like, "Can you watch this and like let me know what you think of it?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I start watching it, and he's talking about like technobabble, right? And like how a lot of times in our niches, like for you, it's like how the most effective ways to build muscle, right? So like for you, it's easy to go into things like you know what I mean, like insulin sensitivity and boosting. How do you create an anabolic spike and glucose transport proteins and shit like that. But like you start talking about that with someone off the streets, and they're going to be like, "Whoa, dude, you're speaking Chinese." And so I'm watching this, and Russell's talking about like technobabble, and I all of a sudden this aha moment. I'm like, okay, he's having me watch this because this is me. I'm just throwing out way too much technobabble. And he shared this strategy that's really helpful. So if anybody listening has an industry that they're in, they're really passionate about, and they know a lot of the vernacular, a lot of like the terminology, but they're trying to find ways to help relate that to more people. There's this cool tool you can use. It's called a kinda like bridge, and it's a way to like plug in analogies so that other people can understand it. You take something that people don't understand and you relate it to something that they do understand. So like, and you just use the words, "it's kind of like." So like when you throw out something and you're like, "Oh, okay, so after you work out, it brings these GLUT4 glucose transport proteins to the surface of your muscles, and that helps pull in glycogen so that like, your muscles are more efficient at burning food for fuel, and you get, more growth and everything like that. It's kind of like, and then blank, and then you'd insert it. You could be like, it's kind of like having, I don't know what a good analogy for that would be, but you get the idea, right?
Exactly, yeah. That's fantastic, actually, because I find I have to check myself on that constantly. When I'm doing like training videos, the biomechanics just roll off my tongue.
Yep.
It's like, if you know biomechanics, you'll understand, and it's awesome. But if you don't know, all these eversion, inversion, all these different planes of movement, frontal plane, sagittal plane, you're like, what the hell did he just say?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like, okay, you're cutting your body in half and you're moving in this direction.
Yep.
That's what you say instead of, you transversed in the sagittal plane and all that.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you can kind of translate it, people will understand it much better, and then they get it, and then they understand what you're trying to say and the value of what you're trying to say. So. Yeah,
and you look at leaders, like people that are voted into positions of power, like we'll say Donald Trump. Regardless of what your feelings are about that man, he won, and he talks at like a fifth grade level, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like he is appealing to the largest amount of people by talking at a grade school level. And everyone can understand him.
Most common denominator.
Yeah. His sentences are short. His words are small. He repeats himself a fuckload. And that's what people respond to, you know? So it's like...
everything he says makes the point, then he makes the point, then he says it again. And,
yeah.
I've noticed that about his speech patterns, too. It's, say what you want about him as a politician or a human being, but he knows how to communicate and to get his message across.
Yeah, it's like you look at his speech patterns, like you said, and there's always an underlying emotion. So he knows what he wants you to feel, and he uses words that bring about those emotions in the listener, right? And then beyond that, he just keeps things very, very simple in a way that anyone can understand. There's not a lot of big words, and if they are big words, it's big words we've been hearing since we were 5 years old, like terrible, you know?
Bad, sad.
Yep, yeah.
No, yeah, it's just basically it's telling you how to feel, and it's communication at its basest level, but it gets across to everybody.
Yeah, it's like we get all kind of twisted from the education system here, at least in the U.S. I'm not sure if other countries are better because I haven't experienced that besides studying abroad in Italy in college, which involved very little schoolwork. But we go through school and we're indirectly taught that using big words makes us look smart, and that we should write in a way that sounds intelligent, not necessarily that is the way that we would verbally articulate ourselves. And then you get out of the corporate world, or some people never got into it, but you start your own business and you realize that doesn't connect with people and it doesn't sell shit. If you want to connect with people and you want to sell stuff, write in a way that you talk, communicate in a way that's easy to understand, and throw some emotion in there. Help people to feel the way that you feel and the way that you want them to feel, that is going to inspire them to take the desired action.
Absolutely. And for those watching this is how to hack your life, how to make your life easier when you communicate with other people. Literally, it's something I've experienced in my writing too. When I've gone back into my earlier writings, 10, 15 years ago, I kind of went into this phase of really getting technical and using these bigger words, and I'm like, why am I doing that? And then bring it back, make more people be able to understand it, make it easier to read, make it communicate better, and it makes things so much easier, and I get feedback from people that they like that approach much better too. Mm-hmm. So anybody can apply that to their own life by, looking at how you're writing, looking at how you're communicating with other people, simplify it. Don't use 10 words when 2 words will be just as good. Don't use, big words are awesome, and sometimes you need them to really describe what you're trying to say, but sometimes you really don't. And just kind of pulling back and using smaller words to communicate the idea more clearly is much more beneficial than using this giant supercalifragilistic, word that means nothing to anybody, but it sounds cool and makes you think that you sound smart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the most beneficial things for me is my girlfriend is, she's really smart and curious about things. And prior to, us being together, she didn't have a lot of experience with biohacking. And so she'll ask me about concepts. And when I explain it to her, I have the opportunity to see when she's checking out, when I'm losing her, basically, or whether it's boring her or using words that don't effectively get the point across. And then you start to notice the patterns there, which we don't always have the opportunity to do with Facebook videos or even YouTube videos or anything like that. There's a really powerful benefit that comes from communicating in person and seeing people's reactions and are they engaged or are they already thinking about that? Starting to drift off. I'm losing them. All right, drop an intrigue point, curiosity builder.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of, let me give you an opportunity here to catch people back into it. What if somebody was interested in losing fat, for example? what would be the number one tip / hack that you would first recommend to them to look at?
Okay, so I'm gonna hit with a punchy tip first, and then the caveat later, because if I start with the caveat, I'll lose everyone. The most important thing that a lot of people are missing with fat loss is they're just consuming, they're either consuming too much or too little food. And with the popularity of paleo and ketogenic diets right now, we either have people that are starving themselves all the time and running their metabolisms into the ground, or we've got people that know that fat is healthy and they're eating a lot of the right types of food. Their food selection is on point, but they're consuming far too much. And weight loss happens in the sweet spot, right, between those two. So we've created a document in the Biohacking Secrets Lifestyle that teaches people how to calculate your target numbers. And again, it's like it comes down to personalization, right? So it teaches you how to figure out what is your lean body mass, and then how do you use that to calculate your caloric targets for fat loss. And this is what we found gets the best results. It's not the generic targets that are given by, MyFitnessPal or any of these other apps. It's, you got to figure out your lean body mass. And there's a website called, if you just type in like lean body mass calculator, something like that, you can come up with it. You enter your age, your height, your weight, your gender, and it'll tell you your lean body mass. And then you take that, and if you're trying to lose weight 6 days a week, you want to be at 10 to 12 calories per pound of lean body mass. Now that may be a little bit more complicated than people are used to, but it fucking works. And if you're doing that, if you're hitting the right targets, then I start layering in other things. Like, you got to make sure you're getting enough fiber. Why? Because fiber is what feeds the good bacteria in our gut. And we have 10 times more bacterial cells in our body than human cells. If you are not tending to those bacteria, you are not optimizing your physiology. It's physically impossible. So get over 30 grams of fiber per day. Boom, you got that going? Cool. Now make sure you're keeping your net carbs under 75. If you're really trying to optimize fat loss, try to keep them under 50. Net carbs is total carbs minus total fiber. And what we do is we take people through a checklist. Like, first get your calories. Cool. Get your fiber. Cool. And as people do this, something falls into place along the way. And if it doesn't happen in those first few steps of getting the right targets, the right food selection, quantity, timing, then we say, okay, we know this. We know that fat loss is a natural byproduct of a human body, a human organism that is in homeostasis. What is out of balance with you that we need to correct? And if someone has tons of digestive issues, they already know they're out of balance. If someone's whole body aches because of inflammation and pain, whether that is thyroid related or related to something else, that pain is a sign that something is out of balance, right? And then we say, all right, we got to troubleshoot to bring you back into balance. And once you are there, the weight loss will start becoming effortless. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And that's I like that approach a lot, because that treats everything not as like a generic, just eat this kind of thing. That is like, here's specific to your body. Here are the steps to do it. And so it's not like somebody wandering around shotgunning all over and trying to figure out what to do next. It's like, here's the approach. Address calories, which is inarguably the biggest thing for losing fat is to have the caloric deficit. You have to have that. There's law of thermodynamics. You have to have that.
The people
addressing that first, and then taking it from there. I think it's perfect. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have wrote some fantastic and very popular books on fat loss, and part of what's made those books popular is them telling people that calories don't matter. And the people that calories don't matter for are the people whose nutrition is so far off and creating such allergic responses and autoimmune responses in their body that just by turning down inflammation, they're able to lose weight. But then once those benefits have been achieved, if they don't create the energy deficit, they're going to plateau, right? I think we've all seen that, right? Someone's eating like garbage. They start eating better. I'm not even counting calories, and they lose a ton of weight. But then, they're still 50 pounds overweight, and the results stop and they plateau. And unless they get that stuff dialed in, it's a pattern that they stay in for a long period of time.
Yep, that's right on the money. Because then, that the underlying cause is not addressed fully.
Yeah.
And then you have to, figure out from there what is your caloric deficit that you need, and created through eating less, created through exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go no camera just for 30 seconds here.
Yeah, sure. So here's another question for you. How long have you been doing the biohacking stuff? Like, when did you first start taking an interest, and what drew you into it?
Yeah, so the same things that I'm talking about, how it's not all about diet and exercise. Those were lessons that I had to learn through working with a lot of clients, through my own journey, and then they became a part of our system. So it was in 2011. My approach was nutrition and exercise, and it was a lot of traditional paleo ketogenic stuff, and high intensity workouts, and that worked for a good percentage of people. But there was also a lot of people that it didn't work for, and it actually made them worse. We'd see them experiencing exercise intolerance, whether you want to call that overtraining or under recovering. And we'd see people where they would do everything right, but the weight still wouldn't come off, and they still wouldn't feel great. And then that was when I started saying, what if our assumptions, what if we're starting with the wrong assumptions, and it's not just diet and exercise? So I started thinking that way, and along that same period of time, I had a rude awakening. I ended up getting really sick myself. Just chronic fatigue, getting worse and worse every day. I could sleep 14 hours and wake up exhausted. My whole body hurt. I felt like I had rheumatoid arthritis, brain fog. Feel like I was forgetting things like 20 seconds after I read them in a book, or misplacing things. And I started over the course of a year. I saw 12 doctors. All of them told me, there's nothing wrong with you. And so I started kind of digging deeper. I read hundreds of scientific journals and books trying to figure out what was going on, and started realizing what if there's more to these little energy powerhouses of our cells than just how we move our body and the stuff and the food we put in our body. And what if I shifted my focus and built a system around optimizing them? What would that do? And in doing that, I started getting my energy back and seeing changes in my body that I'd been unable to achieve, regardless of how much CrossFit I did, how much insanity, how much, how strict I got with my diet, Whole30, paleo, ketogenic. And when I started applying this to the work that I was doing with clients, people that had hit plateaus or not gotten results in the first place, we were able to get them results and completely change their lives. So it opened up this big paradigm that I've since built out over the past 6+ years now, and now we've kind of become known as the guy that people come to when they're when they've tried everything and nothing's worked. And we've got clients that are dealing with certain types of cancers that have very low success rates. We've got professional athletes that are just looking to get that extra 1 to 5 or 10% improvement in their game, and everyone in between. And then stay-at-home moms that just want to feel better and be able to keep up with their kids. And then guys like you and me who want to look good naked, but put in as little time, energy, and effort as necessary to get there.
Yeah. I know for me, I put in as much as possible.
You do? Nice, man. Cheers.
The opposite of that one. I'm not the minimal effective dose. I'm the maximum dose without killing yourself kind of level.
Yeah, maximum effective dose. Yeah, how much can I do without overtraining? That's where I want to hang out.
How much can I do without collapsing constantly? I usually find that out pretty frequently.
Yeah, it's
what I was going to say, what was kind of striking me as you were talking with that is there's such a paradigm similar to what Louis Pasteur said on his deathbed, the guy who invented pasteurization.
Mm-hmm.
It's the terrain. It's not the bacteria necessarily.
Yeah.
For infection.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at loss and results in energy, it's not necessarily the external stuff that's happening to you, which is the bacteria, as an analogy. It's how your body is set, the internal terrain of your body. That's what's causing you to either respond to this stuff or not respond to this stuff.
I love that.
It's like you do all these things right. You can do the exercise right. You can do the high intensity interval training. You can do all that. But if your internal terrain is not conducive to it, it's not going to get the results you want.
Love that analogy. And so one of the things that I've been really diving deep into now, after seeing it transform the lives of a lot of clients who were just stuck, is environment. And so when I'm talking about environment, I'm talking about where the environment our cells exist in, right? Like, am I 19 stories up off of the Earth's electromagnetic field, living in a Chicago high-rise, surrounded by 300 high-power Wi-Fi routers? Or am I living in the country, walking around barefoot, spending time in nature, and really minimizing my exposure to these non-native, unnatural electromagnetic fields that can throw our cells out of balance? And this is one of those things that I've been a big advocate of turning people on to the risks of these EMFs. And it's kind of at that tipping point where there's one category of people who are like, I get it, I totally get it, you're right. And there's other people who almost see it as the same way that, like, people who talked about smoking being dangerous in the 1960s were seen as like radical extremists. There's other people who are like, let me get you your tinfoil hat, buddy. But the evidence now is so compelling. It's beyond any argument, because just by changing, like, people that have been stuck, by changing their environment and getting them back to like a more natural electromagnetic field. We are all electromagnetic beings, right? Like, our heart functions a lot like a magnet, our brain functions a lot like a battery. And all of our cells vibrate at different frequencies, and we're more disconnected from the Earth and more exposed to unnatural electromagnetic fields than at any time in history. And we're starting to see the ramifications of that. And then to take it one step further, like you were saying, our gut is really kind of like an external environment. It's just within our body. It goes in our mouth. It's all separate from the rest of our body, and then it goes out the other end. We take some things and assimilate them into our body, but that environment, despite those bacteria spending a lot of time within us, it is something that plays a pivotal role in our health and whether we thrive or whether we struggle.
That's fascinating to think of it in that terms of your digestive system technically being an internal environment. Yeah. That's a mind bender. That's like, what's that guy with who does the I can't remember. You probably know who I'm talking about. Who does the
David Blaine?
The steps. No, it's he did all these drawings that were
oh yeah. FC Etcher.
That's the one, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's like you think of your internal, external environment, but it's so true, because everything that goes through is like external, but there's a buffer, and that's your digestive system walls, essentially. Yeah. So it's like, that internal environment, but it is externally, I don't know, my brain's just blowing up now.
Yeah, for sure. And you think about it in much the same way, like, so let's think about, we consume some food and it passes from our mouth to our bum, and along the way it is absorbed through our intestines, right? Just to oversimplify everything. Well, what is absorbed stays in our body, the rest passes through. Let's say you are, my dad grew up on a farm, and a lot of what they did on this farm was they'd grow apples. And he spent a lot of time spraying pesticides, right? Well, a lot of those pesticides are absorbed through the skin, and they enter the body, and what our body is unable to detoxify stays within the body. So our skin and the way that it interfaces with our external environment has many similarities to our intestines and the way that it absorbs from the food and toxins of choice we ingest.
Yeah, that makes good sense. It's like, yeah, you think of the inside of your digestive system as your internal skin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which makes it double, triple when we're living in a toxic world, because you're absorbing things inside and out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting hammered from all directions, and if there's no, movement of those toxic things out of your body and clearing out of your body, then yeah, they just accumulate.
Yep.
And your body's fat cells is where a lot of these things get stored. They get locked up in there.
Yeah, definitely. And of the, it's a slippery slope too. The more toxins we accumulate, the more that those toxins can interfere with our body's ability to produce energy. The less energy we produce, the less effective we are at fighting off infections and removing, producing things like enzymes and antioxidants that clear out reactive oxygen species. And you can see very quickly how over years, sometimes even decades, someone wakes up and they're like, "What happened? I'm chronically fatigued. My whole body hurts." And until you get their detoxification pathways turned back on and start getting rid of the things, start troubleshooting the things that are preventing their little energy powerhouses, those mitochondria, from working right, they're going to be stuck. And you're not going to do that just by changing your diet. You're not going to do that. You're definitely not going to do that by killing yourself in the gym. For those people, they may need to almost stop exercising, find passive forms of exercise, or exercise at a rate that is lighter and less intense than anything they've ever done.
Yeah, honestly, exercise can be a very big stress on the body.
Oh yeah.
If you're not able to cope with that stress, then training harder and working out more and doing all this is actually going to work against you, and it's going to actually, make your body kind of shut down in many ways. So there's a lot of people who would say, I've stopped losing fat, I'm going to train harder. That may not be what you need. You need to actually really back off on your training, let your body decrease the inflammation, so it's not having to constantly fight that. Wait till that gets into better balance, and then you can, work on that from there. When your machine is operating more smoothly.
So true. See this a lot with women because, we have societal expectations for how women are supposed to look, and a lot of them, even women I talked to a woman that the other day, she's like 117 pounds, and her number one goal was lose weight. She's got a dozen things that we've identified that are, interfering with her feeling great, but her number one was still lose weight. And I told her, and I was like, look, focus on health and the weight loss will happen. The same way that if you're in business and you focus on making money, you're probably not going to make a lot more money. But if you're in business and you focus on how do I add more value to people, then the money comes. Exactly. Focus on health, the weight loss will come. So, and it's usually one of the things that happens last. So you start feeling better first. You start having more energy first. You start seeing pain go away. You start seeing improved digestion. And then it's like, before you know it, the weight's coming off and you don't even feel like you're doing anything to specifically try to lose weight. But if you don't attend to those things first and you get more strict and you starve yourself, added stressor. And then you work out like a maniac, added stressor. You're taking a body that's already out of balance, that's probably got all of these stressors happening under the surface, and then you're adding more, and it just gets worse. You're sending signals to your body that, you're fighting for your life every day. You're in an environment of scarcity where there's not sufficient food. What's it going to do? It's going to hold on to body fat. Your cortisol is going to go, your stress hormone is going to go through the roof. You're going to be an anxious, nervous mess, and you're going to sleep like shit.
exactly. Yeah. No, it's basically you just grind yourself down, and sometimes it kind of sneaks up on you, especially it's first you don't really notice it, and then you don't notice it, and then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, what the hell happened? So it happens to a lot of people. It's a very common thing, and it's unfortunately a byproduct of our society in many ways, but in many ways there are, as your book goes into, things you can do about it. And that's what I think the real focus of your book is here are the things you can do about it. And not just, not just nutrition, not just exercise, but there are various things, drinking water, how you drink water, when you drink water, sleeping patterns, stress levels. There's so many different things that you can address via Kaizen, the principle you talked about before, little by little. The devil is in the details kind of thing. And sometimes changing the big things doesn't do very much. Because those little things that are holding it up, like that little keystone that's holding back a landslide. Yeah. And sometimes you do need to actually focus on the little things, and the little things are easier mentally for you to do. Because you're like, okay, I don't want to change my entire eating patterns all at once, but I can, drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. We'll start with that. Yeah. That's very easy for somebody to get into, and maybe that helps them feel a little better, and that sets off a landslide of other things happening.
Yeah, and we've kind of come to this point where we're obsessed with looking outside of ourselves for advice and guidance to such a degree that we've stopped trusting our own internal guidance system. And we've got people, and I think you and I have probably both done it. I know I have, where you get a certain piece of advice, it logically makes sense, you start implementing it, and it makes you feel like shit, right? But you keep doing it because someone presented it in a way that was quite convincing, and you believe you should be doing it and that it's good for you. But we're violating what I think is the most important rule, which is feeling good is our highest goal, right? Why do a lot of people want to lose weight? It's because they want to feel good. Right? They want to step out of the shower, look in the mirror, and instead of thinking, oh God, what is all this flab around my midsection? They're thinking like, damn, I look fucking good. They go out wearing a nice dress or, a tank top, or take their shirt off at the beach, and they see people's heads turning, and that feels good. It's, they get that positive attention, and it feels good. That's what we want. We all just want to feel good, and we think that weight loss is a means to that end. Well, if you observe the things that make you feel good and you do more of those things, and you also give credence to the things that make you feel bad and you gravitate away from them, without a degree in nutritional neuroscience or exercise physiology or biohacking or anything else, you can get yourself feeling pretty darn good. And then you start utilizing some of these tools like you've put out for people, like I've put out for people, to help them take things to those next levels, to go from good to great, and then you're throwing gasoline on a fire, and in a good way.
Absolutely, yeah. It just greases the wheels, and that's why in looking at your book and reading through some of this stuff, it's just these things are going to give you the tools to do that, like beyond just listening to your body. This is going to give you basically the grease for the wheel that's going to really help get you along the path that you're looking to get to. And honestly, I think it's like 500 pages.
It's a beast.
The volume of it's a beast. And the volume of good information and actionable information is fantastic. And I think you did a phenomenal job with this book, man. It's good, really good stuff.
Thanks, brother. We, it was one of those things that started as a much smaller project. And I talked to Russell, and I was like, look, we can make this something really special, but it's going to be really long, and it's going to take me a bit longer to get it done. And he was like, do it. And then we were like, all right, well, how do we also alleviate people's hesitation? Because there's so much just shit information out there and stuff where, like, you and I've done it. We've invested in courses, and you get the course, you're like, I know all this stuff. I've tried it. Doesn't work. I'm like, how do you take away that risk? So people aren't like, what if this is just like everything else? And Russell's like, give it away for free. And I'm like, this is one of the best marketers in the world. And he's telling you to like give your baby away for free. And I'm like, no, because logically that's not how we're wired. But, if you really want to like take away that risk for people, that's something you got to do, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And, that's literally given to the universe.
Yeah.
And, just the amount of information is phenomenal, and it's you're going to get a physical book in the mail. Just was it like $7 for shipping or something? Which is I got the book right here, and look at the size of this book.
Yeah, it's over.
Full of good stuff. I mean,
yeah, it's over 500.
If you don't read it, you can literally like even if you don't read it, just you can prop up the short leg of your bed or something with it. It's useful even if you don't read it.
Yeah, you can.
But
you can use it as a weapon in case anyone breaks into your house. Just club them over the head with it.
Seriously, you can get a good swing with this thing, man. And but bottom line, I've read through some of the stuff in there, and in terms of using this, go through the pages. You don't have to read it all at once. It's not like the kind of book that you're gonna digest in one sitting, to turn a phrase, since we've been talking like that. But the information in here is stuff that you can and should use as you are able to. So definitely, read through things, think about how you can apply it to yourself. And honestly, this is a no-brainer for you to pick up. This is, the value is phenomenal, and the price is dirt cheap, and you're going to get a physical book, which I like better for me. I sell ebooks, but I like physical books. Something you can hold in your hand, you can bring and read whenever.
Me too.
Fantastic value. So, yeah.
Yeah,
and I've got a link to where you can go find this book and pick up this book just below the video here. Definitely go check that out and grab your copy, because this is not going to be free forever. Maybe they will, but there's a certain amount of print run. So there is some limitations on this. So don't put this off. Just go grab your copy of it. And Anthony, if you have any like closing statements, closing thoughts that you'd like to give to people, definitely I'd like to hear it.
Yeah. So the way that I read is like very rarely do I get a book and it's just cover to cover. It's I'm looking for like the useful nuggets of information that I could apply immediately. And a lot of times it's like what's the one thing I can take away from this book? So what I did for people that are like me and kind of want to be able to just flip to a page and get the most important piece of information and then put it into immediate action is for every chapter, nutrition, movement, stress management, sleep, everything. I've got the one thing where if you don't want to read this chapter, just do this and implement this and you'll feel the difference, right? Feeling is understanding. So we've done that for every part of the book, and we've got a lot of like tons of pictures and helpful diagrams for people that are more visual. Yeah, we'll do something cool for anyone that picks it up. We've only got like, I don't know how many copies left. I haven't checked with shipping, but it's not an offer that we're gonna leave on the table. It's something that we're doing, with your group, and once the books are gone, it may be 3 to 4 months before we even reorder another shipment. But the people that get it, we'll also happy to hook them up with some cool bonuses, and you and I can talk about that, whether it's how to biohack testosterone or to build more lean muscle. We'll figure out something really cool for like, I don't know, what do you want to do, like the first X amount of people?
Let's do it for everybody.
Everybody?
Yeah, everybody, free for everybody. I'm thinking, because it's such good information, and I want to make sure everybody gets a good crack at it. And there are people who don't read these emails immediately. I want to give them a chance to get that too.
Beautiful.
That'll teach them a lesson.
Yeah. So as long as the link is working, you guys are going to get hooked up. Free copy of the book, just help out with shipping. We'll get you some badass bonuses and stuff so that you're not only like you're able to find that overlap between what's going to help you get the body you want and look better naked, build more lean muscle, but also have energy that goes all day so that you wake up feeling good and you're not hitting those afternoon energy dips. If you've got a business that you're building or, a job that where it's important that you're able to perform, you're going to be able to do that and look amazing while you do it and, find a lot of gems in here that you won't find anywhere else.
Oh man, I really appreciate it. And right now, go click that link, go grab your copy of this book. And Anthony, it was great talking to you. I had a blast, and we covered a lot of really good stuff, so thanks.
Great talking with you too, Nick. I appreciate you. It was fun as always, and talk to you soon, brother.
All right.